Welcome back to another edition of the Balas and Skene Show at the Wolverine.com Michigan football podcast with former Michigan five-time Big Ten champion Doug Skene, former All Big Ten offensive lineman, played for Bill Parcells with the NFL's New England Patriots. Did I get it all right there, Skene?
Yeah, you got
All right, we got everything. Checks all the boxes. Now a successful businessman and still an expert on Michigan football. It's fun to listen to you talk. A lot of people watching this podcast, obviously, they're not here for me. They're here to listen to your insights. So we'll get right to it here, man. And my thoughts on Michigan State. This is a 31-20 win. You know, more like 31-13. They get a meaningless touchdown at the end. And
hey, Balas, was that meaningless?
It wasn't to them, but it was meaningless to the outcome of the game.
I was sitting there with a buddy, and I was like, he made a comment to me, is like, this is actually a pretty huge touchdown. I said, why?
Oh yeah.
Let me guess, the spread, right? So, he's like, he said, we looked it up real fast on the spread. He said a lot of people just lost money, and a lot of people just made money on that last touchdown. And I was like, no, I totally forgot about that.
And this, kids, is why you do not bet. Even if you have a hunch and even if everything goes according to plan, there are these things called backdoor covers and, late meaningless touchdowns that can put you in the poorhouse. So put those apps away, kids, and, go get into it or something like that. Anyway, Skene, more than anything, the sense that I get from the fan base after this one is that Michigan fans were somewhat unfulfilled. Michigan State fans were like, well, we were defeated with dignity. We knew we were going to lose. It was probably a game longer than we thought it was going to be. In other words, it felt like old times, Doug, when you beat Michigan State, right? And neither side's really happy. You're relieved if you're a Michigan fan. And I think that's one way that most people felt about this and feel about this rivalry now is you get in, you get out. But I will say that any win over a rival is a good win, Doug.
Yes. I mean, let's clear the question in the air, Balas. It's a W on the road at Michigan State. That alone should be satisfying and a good thing to celebrate as Michigan fans. And so that is absolutely true. The alternative would have been a total disaster. So, yes, let's just clear it and establish an expectation here that as far as this conversation goes here today, and for Michigan fans this week, it was a win against Michigan State at their place. It's always good. Now we can talk about what it looked like, what we liked about it, maybe what we didn't like about it as it relates to what's coming ahead on this schedule.
Yep. And what is coming ahead is 3 games you better win going into Ohio State. And you've got Purdue at home this weekend. You're going to be like probably a 25-point favorite. You're going to be a heavy favorite at Northwestern. That's a team that's improved. They're plucky, I guess is what I would call them, right? They play hard. They're not very good. And then you've got Maryland down the road. Everybody looks at Maryland and says, ooh, I'm scared, so on and so forth. That's a game you're probably going to win. The one thing, though, about this Michigan team, Doug, and what I've compared them to is kind of like the flavor of the year Illinois team last year that took advantage of its schedule and is going to win its home games. And you're tough out at home and you play, really good football at home. But when you go on the road against a good team or a solid team, you're going to struggle. And that's still, to me, kind of what Michigan is, right? They are taking advantage of their schedule. You can only play the games that are in front of you. I know it's cliche, but they're going to probably be 9-2 with an opportunity against Ohio State because of the schedule. But this team still, the best Michigan teams and the best teams overall, if you look at Ohio State and Indiana, are going to go on the road. They would have beaten this Michigan State team 63-0. You can go out, if you're Indiana, and go out to Oregon and win. Michigan's not winning at Oregon this year, for example. Ohio State goes out and handles Washington at their place, right? I think Michigan loses that Washington game at Washington. I know they handled them at home, but to me, that's what kind of team this is. Am I wrong?
Well, it's impossible to say whether you're right or wrong about those scenarios, but we can say, okay, let's look at the schedule and say, look at the 2 big challenging opponents we had that were on the road. Actually 3, but to be fair, there was Nebraska, there was USC, and there was Oklahoma.
Yep.
And 2 out of those 3 was an ugly look. We weren't even close. The Nebraska game, to this team's credit, they looked good. I think they went down there and performed, and it was a little tight for a while, obviously more than a while, and they passed that test. I think you and I both picked them to lose that game,
We
and
did.
so it's not a 100% big giant question mark, an area for concern, but it's certainly two of the three were not good. And now here we are at this point in the season. There's nothing left to look at on the road to see how we would play. But there's enough questions, Balas, after watching the Michigan State performance offensively for me, where I would say to myself, just we could call it the cliche eyeball test.
Yep.
There's still some things that don't make sense here at this point in the season that we ought to be better at. And so I think that's the part that we're kind of generally alluding to here that we didn't like about the victory over Michigan State.
Yep, and Nebraska's kind of ass, if we're being honest. 9 sacks they gave up against Minnesota, that team. And one of the reasons that I think we picked them to lose, I thought Nebraska might be a little bit better than they are. They aren't. That's a bad football team. But at the same time, again, it's a tougher place to play. If you look at Michigan State, still a tougher place to play because it's a rival, and those people are on top of you, and they're giving you the business. So those are solid wins on the road, and good enough. You got the talent to do it. And again, these are teams like Northwestern and Maryland are two teams that you can beat on talent alone. What I want to see in those games, Doug, is I wrote this. I want to see good, solid, fundamental football where they are doing the little things right. You don't have these lack of attention to detail moments that we see in just about every game. And again, in this one, and let's talk about the good stuff first, because I don't want to harp on this and say this was a bad win or anything like that. There is no such thing. I guess there is, but regardless, let's talk a little bit about the second half adjustments and what changed from the first half to the second half. They were running the ball a little bit in the first half, but nothing like we saw in the second half. Looked like they spread them out a little bit in the second half and created a little bit more lanes and a little bit more room for their athletes to do some things. What did you see different at the start of the second half compared to the first?
Well, the plays that were identified on the television broadcast they ran some trap. They just you take advantage of hard upfield defensive linemen by running inside or outside trap, and we popped those 2 runs coming out of the half there that changed the momentum in just 2 snaps, and all of a sudden we had 50 yards of rushing in 2 plays, and you just execute a little bit differently. I guess the flip side of that is, why do we have to wait to halftime to notice this? Why can't we make those adjustments earlier when we notice, hey, by the second or third possession, you come to the sideline, the offensive line gathers, the offensive line coach, and maybe the head coach comes over and, all right, what are we seeing out there? Well, coach, I got a wide 3 on me every time, and this dude is upfield hard. So if I'm the left guard and I got a wide 3, running zone left is a tough block for me to execute. So maybe we can try something else. Maybe I'll escape inside to that middle linebacker, and then we do an inside trap, and off we go. That's the kind of adjustment that's a fairly easy one. High school teams make those adjustments on Friday nights. Uh-huh. And so we, why does it take so long? And then specifically in the passing game, Michigan State was crashing our edges, right? Bringing an extra guy off the edge. And why can't we throw a hot route off of those things and throw at these blitzes? Why does it seem like we're running away? Now, in my mind, maybe it's because we have an inexperienced quarterback. We'll talk about the controversial play, I'm sure, here, Balas, the offsides call. But in that specific play, there was a pre-snap key that we didn't appear to adjust to. And so those are the kinds of things for me as I watch. I say to myself, okay, we're at the midway point, just past the midway point in this football season. We ought to be able to adjust quicker to these things that the defense is showing. And that's the part that creates some concern. But they did get it going in the second half. Obviously, in the runs that we did have were big chunk plays, and we kept going back to what they call counter, or what I just call power, where you saw the left guard, right guard, guard and tackle pull front side. One guy's kicking, one guy's going up front side. It's an old familiar play that we used to run with smashing success 2 years ago, and we've not been as good at it this year. So what did we finish with? 276 yards, Balas?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yep.
So that's a pretty awesome day of running the football. It really is.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you get chunk plays or if you get 8 at a time. You'd like a little bit more consistency, but like you said, they were crashing in the first half. Explain what trap is to the basic fan out there.
Where's my? Well, I'm gonna find my marker, Balas. I don't have it.
Boy, somebody's not prepared this morning, kids.
I wasn't.
For all
I
you
wasn't
kids out
prepared
there
for that
getting ready to go
question.
to school, wow, yeah, you didn't do your homework.
I
That's okay.
wasn't
It's all right.
prepared.
We'll come back to that. So, but
No,
in
no,
like,
hang on a second. Hold on. Look out the window there for a second.
okay, if we had some hold music here, folks, then I would play it right now. A little elevator music.
All right, let me get rid of my old drawing here. This is fairly easy stuff to explain.
Do you have Pictionary night on Friday or something?
No, I just keep this around to draw football plays when I watch the game, so my wife and I can break down interior line play.
Nice. She was pretty impressive, by the way, on Friday night. We went out to dinner Friday night, and she was talking a little football. You know, got the people a little excited there at the table. So anyway, continue on trap stuff.
All right, so let's say you have a Y3 technique playing out here, right? And Michigan State is playing hard upfield with their threes. You got a 1 or a 0 in this other gap over here. Okay, this is a nose, and you got, let's just say, a linebacker here. You usually have an end out here and an end out here and a backer of some kind. This is what it kind of generally looks like. All right. If these linemen are hard upfield, instead of trying to zone block these guys, we're going to draw zone block right. So everybody's going right. Instead of doing that, you take advantage of this. And what you do here is you block your center back, right here. Mm-hmm. And you take your right guard. You can widen this split right here. If you had a regular 1 foot split, you make this a 2 or 3 foot split, and that naturally will move this 3 technique out with you, right? Because he's taught you line up on the outside shoulder of this guard. So let's say we do that. We widen our split, and then we take an inside foot, jab foot, and then we come up, and we're blocking this linebacker right here. And then we take this offside guard, and we take a nice gain step on our first move, and this guy takes himself upfield. He thinks he's got a free shot at the back, and we're going to trap him right here. Your ball carrier coming from a different angle back in here goes right there. And that's basically inside trap. You want to run outside trap, you just move the trap out one position, and you're going to trap this guy instead of this guy.
Gotcha.
And then you've got somebody out here. Maybe you have a tight end out here is moving to something. There's ways to address this front side linebacker. But if defenses are playing heavy upfield and they're attacking your backfield, this is the kind of thing you do to take advantage of them taking themselves out of position. It's simple trap.
Yep. And
you learn, I mean, as an offensive lineman, you learn how to block that stuff early in your football career, and it's a lot of fun because you can catch guys without looking. So for those of you that watch some of the Balas you watch on the Big Ten Network, or sometimes they'll show clips of the 93 Rose Bowl with Tyrone Wheatley running 50, 60 yards. 2 of those runs were that. Simple inside trap.
And that's what I was just going to say. That's the first time I was introduced to trap, or really thought, okay, wow, what did they do there? Differently. So good stuff, Skene. Let's talk about our young quarterback here, Bryce Underwood. Didn't really look comfortable, in my opinion. He seemed to bail on some pockets early, and he didn't seem to trust his guys up front. And when you have that, then you have an offense that looks clunky. And we were in our text chain, we were saying, you said early on in this game, you can write your story now, right? That the offense is still clunky, but they're going to win this football game. And that's pretty much exactly what happened. But to me, it looked like he bailed out of some pockets a few times. He threw high a few times. Didn't really trust his tackles. Pressured, I think, on maybe 30% or something like that of his dropbacks. And other times that he wasn't pressured, he was still bailing, and made it a little bit easier on Michigan State. So this passing offense needs work.
Well, so when we see a young quarterback bail out, and he likes to bail out to his right predominantly because he's right-handed, it just seems to me this is part of the normal progression of transferring your comfort level and your default position, or whatever you want to call it, from high school to college. That's why I text you and Stapleton when we're chatting during games, and I just say, this ain't high school anymore. You can't do that. And it just feels like at times Bryce relies on his athletic ability, and he just bails out of there, because I guarantee you 99.9% of the time when he was playing in high school, he could do that as much as he wanted to and have great success. It doesn't have that kind of success percentage at this level, Balas, as we all know, because guys can run, they can fly. We've already seen him get ran down from behind a couple times. So for me, it's just a matter of coaching the discipline and practicing it for him to stand in there that extra half second and have the discipline to find the correct target with the football and get rid of it. And sometimes the correct target is the first down marker or 3 yards into the sideline, and we play for the next down. And so I look at that and I just say, okay, this is a young man who's learning the game, and he's figuring out that balance between what he can get away with and he can't get away with. Michigan State continued to rush our edges, right, bringing pressure off the edges of their defense into us. And so in those occasions, that's where it's critical that the offensive line establish a pocket up front with your center and 2 guards, so he's got somewhere to step up into. The key throughout it all, I don't care if you bail out or not, the key throughout it all is your quarterback must keep his eyes downfield, watching his targets and his route trees, whatever progression. He's got to keep his eyes down there. And what happens is the defenses are peeking back in there and they're watching. And when his eyeballs leave the targets downfield and he looks down at his protection and decides to become a runner, all bets are off. Now you've lost visual contact with your targets, and now we're playing backyard football.
Yep.
And that's not conducive to a flow, tempoed, measured offense because it's inconsistent.
Yep, and he's throwing a little sidearm at times. He's throwing a little bit high at times, not really trusting his mechanics. He's always feeling like he's got to throw off his back foot. And again, part of that is when you don't trust your line. So overall.
But again, I think throwing off the back foot and doing some of those things, I think this is just a byproduct of having a true freshman quarterback. It doesn't concern me. It just means, okay, he's not entirely settled into this level of football just yet. He get there.
He just turned 18 years old, and people are expecting him to play. There are times that he looks like an all Big Ten guy, like last week against Washington when he was 21 of 27, should have been 25 of 27. It was ridiculous how good he was. And you're thinking, I can't believe how advanced this kid is at this age. It's tougher on the road in the Big Ten. There's no question about it, no matter where you play, right?
Well, it is Balas, but the flip side of that is, okay, I didn't look statistically. Where did Michigan State's defense rank in the Big Ten in passing defense? Where were they?
I'm pretty sure they were last, and that's what really bothers me. They had 86 yards of passing scheme.
And so part of my question is, okay, generally broad brush here, why can't we pass the football against this defense? Yeah, that's a fair question. Why aren't our wide receivers open more? What happened to our tight ends, our pass protection? Really? We can't execute our passing offense against that defense? That's the part that I think just overall is like, man, there were just some opportunities out there with some of their blitzes, which were fairly obvious when they were coming, that we could have run the hot route, thrown directly at the blitz, and had first downs. We didn't do that with any consistency, and that's the part that's got me going, man, that we ought to be able to do that.
Especially 8 games into the year, right? And there was one time, and we'll talk about this play, whether it was offsides, whether it wasn't. It was a matter of inches, literally. Could have been called either way. And, of course, the Michigan State contingent is talking like it, it could have been a game-changing play. More than likely, Michigan State would have gone 3 and out or something and punted, and then you're scoring on the next series or whatever. Big deal. They weren't going to win that football game. You could have played that game 10 times and probably won that game 10 times. This was Michigan's C- effort, probably, or C- game, in my opinion, at least from an offensive standpoint, probably a D, other than maybe the rushing. So in our grades, we gave the pass defense a D. But to me, that one play.
Wait, the pass defense?
I'm sorry, the pass offense. Yeah. So, yeah. But that one play, they were calling attention to it. Michigan's, I think it was a receiver, was calling attention to it with Bryce and saying, hey, this guy's coming. I don't think he noticed it. I thought that was on the quarterback there.
Yes, absolutely on the quarterback. Everybody paying attention. Again, I, without being familiar with what the cadence is at the line of scrimmage, I know it looks like, whatever cadence that is. Football teams have the ability, using whatever cadence they use, to try to make the defense make a move pre-snap, to show what they're going to do. On this particular play, that defender walked right up to the corner, and you see it on television. It's like, okay, and Bryce's helmet is facing forward this way, maybe even looking left, at no point in the television copy that I watched and all the replays did he turn his head and look at that guy and look over here to the right. So again, is that a byproduct of we're staying in a play that we don't have any options to audible out of or change routes or protection? Is that what happened? Or is this just a byproduct of a freshman quarterback who doesn't know well enough yet to check for these things? And I don't know where the play clock was, Balas, when that went down. I'm assuming we had a couple seconds. I don't know. It doesn't matter at this point because we got the playoff. But normal conditions, he'd look over there, see that. His first receiver to the outside of that blitz ought to run a hot route right behind it if there's enough space, and the ball goes right at the guy. That's how you defeat that kind of stuff. That's not what happened. Was it offsides? I'll tell you what, my Michigan State fans and coworkers, friends of mine, they're upset about that play. And objectively, a referee could have called that both ways. When you go into the super slow motion, it was offside. He was in the neutral zone. It wasn't close. In the moment, in the actual fraction of a second, clearly the guy moved a step before the rest of the green jerseys did, which caused that official to reach for that yellow flag. I don't think it's an egregious penalty. I think it was correct. It was a little bit close to the visual eye. And so I can understand why they're upset. And like we're talking about here, I'm more upset that we don't recognize that stuff and see it and adjust to it.
Yeah, and the receiver did, like I said, and he was calling attention to it if you go watch it again. So that's, again, somewhere that he's going to have to improve, but he's got 3 games here now that are essentially, in my opinion, auditions for Ohio State. You know what? It is time now. You are 8 games in to really get everything down to the point where these things are cleaned up and you are a well-oiled machine going into that Ohio State game. What's the cliche, Skene? At the end of 10 or 11 games, you are not a freshman anymore. You're a sophomore. So now let's be honest here. The guys up front, he's got 3 freshmen, 3 first-year guys playing on the offensive line. So you have to take that into consideration. You've got Blake Frazier, who really, I like the way he plays, the edge he plays with, Skene. He had a log block where he wasn't just content to stand his guy up. Or you know which one I'm talking about? He's sitting there pushing that guy and getting into him. I was really impressed with that. And I really thought when you've got three essentially freshmen up front, you're going to have some of this. At the same time, again, you're going to have these 3 guys playing together for the rest of the year here, hopefully. I don't think you put Evan Link back in there at this point. I like to stick with Blake Frazier and let these guys get a little cohesion going into that last game. But your thoughts on those guys up front?
Well, so Balas, I always look for who's the guy up there creating the tone, who's the guy up there that's flying around putting people on the ground in an effort to rub some belt buckles in some faces, you know what I mean, by putting guys on the ground, not knockdowns, pancakes, whatever you want to call them, the difference makers. Those are the guys, you need 1 or 2 of those guys to create an expectation for the rest of them so that when on Sundays, when they're watching the game film together, you can highlight that stuff as an offensive line coach and point it out and say, this is what it's supposed to look like. Frazier clearly plays that way. And maybe he's the guy to create a little spark in the rest of them to try to put people on the ground. And I'm not saying the rest of them haven't tried to do that, but it's obvious that he plays with a little bit more of that tone. And there was a couple snaps where he was throwing dudes around. As you know, I love that stuff. I love it. I love it. I love it. You're going to draw a 15-yard personal foul, which I think maybe Michigan got a couple of those the other night because somebody wasn't controlling their emotions in this football game. That's not unusual for this rivalry game, but up front offensively, we got 3 redshirt freshmen up there playing, and I think they're playing pretty good. The problem that we can see going down the path here a few weeks into late November is, statistically speaking, Ohio State has a top 5 defense. I don't know that we're going to be able to line up and hand the ball off 50 times against Ohio State and win the football game. So this pass protection, and oh, by the way, back to that controversial play, Balas. If you go back and you watch the way that our right tackle Sprague and the back tried to block that game off the edge, that was a mess. It did not look the way it was supposed to look. It looked like hesitation, and actually I think it was Jordan Marshall, ended up hitting our own tackle because it looked like there was an unfamiliar assignment in both of their heads, like who had who here. And so it wasn't clean. It wasn't a clean blitz pickup. That stuff's not going to work against one of the top defenses in America. So they've got 3 more games to get this sorted out. And before they line up against the Buckeyes, who's going to be an outstanding defense, the best defense they're going to play against, hands down, all year. And so you better learn how to be able to throw the football to the right target and stay in the pocket. So there's a lot of things that need to be cleaned up. And I think that's why you and I, in talking about this Michigan State game, and a lot of Michigan fans are going, oh, man, because we know who's coming. Yep. We know what's left on this roster or the schedule and what it's going to take to beat those guys. And I don't think Ryan Day is going to have the most pathetic coaching job day of his career, part 2, and here at the end of November in Ann Arbor, like he did last year in Columbus. I don't think he's going to do a stupid thing as he did a year ago.
Yeah,
and so
I think he's got the team really that knows how to win this game, or not knows how to win this game, but built to beat this Michigan team with that.
Well, defense. Yeah. So what talent versus talent? I'd say that the Ohio State matchup will be far more equal, and in some areas they're going to be better than us, and that's not new against Ohio State. So that's why we're sitting here going, man, we got to do this, and we got to do that, and yeah, we beat Michigan State, but it's not good enough. And I think that's the context that most of us are coming from.
Yep, no question. And a third of the game, special teams, that's another area that needs to improve. You got a guy catching a ball inside the 5. You've got one of his blockers running into him again. I remember Oji saying, that's a bad look when one of your blockers is laying a hit on your return man. You had a fair catch inside at the 20-yard line when you had a 15-yard head start because they got a penalty. Things like that. We're talking about attention to detail, right? You had Marlon Klein lined up about 2 yards in front of everybody on one of those penalties where
half of Klein's whole body was past the line of scrimmage.
I'm like, what are you doing?
I almost want to say, man, is this the opener?
Right.
Is this the first week of the year that we're making these kinds of mistakes? And those are the general indicators where we sit here and go, what is going on? How is this possible at this point in the season that we make these kinds of mistakes? Samaj Morgan not only caught the ball inside the 5-yard line, but on the big Justice Haynes run, he was the one who kind of knocked him down, right? I mean, he might have been gone to the house had it not been for Morgan being in the way. Yeah, it's like, and Morgan wasn't engaged with the block.
He's just running in the middle of the field like he's chasing a deer or a rabbit or something like that.
When you watch the end zone replay, it's like Morgan was zeroing in and vectored right on him to meet him. Like, hey, dude, what are you doing?
And Haynes pushes him, and after the play, he kind of throws his hands up and like, what are you doing?
Yeah, so, what the F are you doing, dude?
And I don't want to pick on the kid, man, but man, another drop pass as well. But these are the attention to detail things that we talk about and that I wrote about in my article, where you're like, okay, when I watch Indiana play and when I watch Ohio State play, you don't see this stupid shit. And if you want to be one of the better teams in the country, not just another team in the Big Ten, and I wrote Michigan looks like the 6th best team in the Big Ten at this point. If you look at Iowa and the way they're playing, you look at Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon, right? And there's one other one, probably USC, because they beat Michigan by 3 touchdowns. They're not great, but so that's puts you at 6 right there. But if this Michigan team were to go to Penn State and play a game like that, even they'd probably lose. If they were to go to Indiana, they'd get crushed. Ohio State, we don't know because they're in their heads. Iowa, they would have gotten crushed, in my opinion. That's another team playing with great attention to detail. You sense, you sense really well coached teams and teams that really have that attention to detail when you watch them. We're not seeing that yet from this Michigan team. Again, they are young. They are the youngest roster in the Big Ten. And Skene, they've had different lineups up front because these guys have been banged up, but it just needs to be better.
Well, it does. It needs to be better, again, in the context of what we all want this team to accomplish here at the end of the season and make its way into this playoff. And what we've seen against Oklahoma on the road, what we've seen against USC, and what we've seen in some spots in all these games, certainly in the middle of the season here, these are the kinds of things. It doesn't take any special talent. You don't have to be super fast or big or strong to know better. on pre-snap alignment, or when you do catch the ball, or when you're in open space, what are you supposed to be doing when there's a running back running free in the middle of the secondary? These kinds of things, there's really at this point in the season, if I'm the coach, there's no excuses for this stuff. Well, this stuff should have been cleaned up in the preseason camp, and certainly by the end of the second game, we're done with this kind of dumb shit, and we're dialed in. We're playing smart football, and these are the problems that we're talking about, Balas. So these are legit criticisms in my mind, and in spite of the fact that we won the game, so that's good. We're out. We got a chance here.
I do want to touch on the defense real quick. Number one, Jimmy Rolder played one of the best games literally that I've ever seen a Michigan linebacker play ever. And talk about him and his impact here. Just literally every big play, Jimmy Rolder was there, whether it was breaking up a pass on a 2-point conversion, a 4th down pass, a sack, the fumble recovery. I mean, this guy was everywhere. What a game.
So we talk about the inverse of dumb football is smart football. and man, I'm sitting there with my buddy watching the game, and he turns to me after the kid made his 3rd or 4th grade play. He's like, Skene, that kid's just a football player. He just gets it, right? And we can go back and talk about maybe one of my favorite, most instinctive football players to ever play at Michigan, Mikey Sandristil. Not the biggest guy out there, not the strongest guy out there, but man, just a nose and a sense for football. Rolder's performance Saturday night in East Lansing reminded me of Sandristil in the football smarts, the situational awareness, the eyeballs, the technique, all of it put together. It's like, man, that's just outstanding. That's what it looks like. And so, hats off to that kid, man. That was awesome to watch.
Yep, and the defense overall. I thought Jair Hill had a nice game again. He's quietly probably been the defensive MVP of this team through 8 games. If you're looking at, there's not a standout. Derek Moore's starting to play really good football too now that he's healthy. But I really had very few complaints about the defense. A couple missed tackles on the first.
I was going to say I had one. So some of the tackling at the second level was not good enough, and we got guys coming up and chicken winging instead of using their arms to wrap up guys. But it was just a few. That'll need to be cleaned up, and I'm sure the defensive staff will work on that. But other than that, the defense, obviously Michigan State, they moved the ball a little bit, had a couple big plays, and Michigan's defense it felt like Michigan's defense went to the sideline after the Spartans had some success, came back on the field and was like, all right, we're done here. We're done with you dudes. We're going to shut you down. And it looked and felt that way. Yeah, Michigan State had 230 yards before that last drive that put some people on the street because they bet the savings in the house on this point spread. But other than that, 7 of the first 9 drives, 3 and outs, really a nice job there. So they're starting to come around. Got to keep it going. So Skene, we will talk more next week about, it'll be Michigan Purdue. This is a bad football team coming in. Now is the time that you focus on cleaning up the little things, preparing towards going to that Ohio State game. I'm excited about it. And Northwestern's not a terrible football team. That'll be interesting and maybe a little bit of a litmus test, even though a lot of those fans at Wrigley Field will be Michigan fans. It's still a road environment. So we'll see where it goes, but I appreciate your time, and we will do this again next week. Go Blue.